My name is Sewenare, and I'm a Student Access Coordinator at UAIDS, which is Universal Accessibility and Disability Services. Here in PE. For PE campuses, we also have a Student Access Coordinator for George Campus, who's joining us virtually. So I welcome you to this, to our event. And our hope is that we'll get to engage and reflect on our theme, which is inspired by our guest speaker, Mahambehlala. Our theme is the only true disability in life is bad attitude. And a special welcome to Leletu. Mahambehlala, thank you for joining us. Thank you for accepting our invitation. We really appreciate your contribution and your time. And we're looking forward to learning from you and hearing your journey as you will share with us. So just a run through of our program. We will have an address by SRC Special Needs and Disability Officer, Lumko Lwandile, and then introduction of our guest speaker by Avelawana, and then we'll have our guest speaker, then a question and answer session, which we hope that we will all engage, ask, reflect, comment, anything goes. It's a learning, there's no right or wrong answer or comment or anything. And then we'll have our vote of thanks and end the event. Thank you so much. Over to you, Lwandile.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. I don't know if anyone can see, but I'm having like a panic moment, but I'll get my grip. So the transition from high school to university is quite a leap, and particularly for special needs students, it can be very stressful and very challenging. And without the adequate support and orientation into the university community, it can really start now becoming a daunting experience. The first few months, you might feel like you are sinking, and you might feel like everything is just going wrong and you are not finding your way into the university community. And post the 3 months, maybe first or 3 months, you might think to yourself, well, I have this, I've got this now, and I can do everything. But the truth is, with academic stress and any kind of stress, the higher you go, the worse it becomes. And not exactly worse, but it becomes more and more. And I have this analogy when it comes to stress and response to stress. We have this thing where, I'll talk about God in a minute. Sometimes God throws a pebble at you and you say, oh, I'm gonna deal with it later, another moment. And then you leave it like that. And now bricks start falling and you're like, oh, okay, now it's bricks, but I'm still gonna maybe think about this later. And then only when rocks now start falling, do you start feeling like, oh my God, I'm under the pressure and I have to do something about this. My name is Lwandile Lumko. I am the SRC Special Needs and Disability Officer. My job primarily as a disability unit, above the bureaucracy, the processes, the policies, and everything else, is to create a sense of community amongst students who are differently abled and students who do not have any handicaps. And it's to ensure that different parts of the university mind the gap between differently able students and students who do not have physical, psychosocial, and all sorts of other disabilities. I am basically everyone's friend. So you do not have to struggle alone if you have a special need. You can come to anyone. There's a team of people, I will see where, and I'm also here for that, because honestly speaking, you could have a disability and still live a very normal life if you come and ask for support from these people, these avenues that are available at your disposal. Or you can sit in the corner and try to be a hero, which is not a bad thing, but sometimes it's okay to go to someone and say, I need help, so that your attitude doesn't change towards the university system in its entirety, and you start slacking, and now you feel like you're being sidelined, when you can go to people and talk to these people and get the adequate support and the necessary orientation into the university community, so that you are able to move forward quite easily, relatively easy, because university is not exactly a walk in the park. So it can never be easy, but it can be better. So if there's anyone here who has any disabilities or anything, they can come to me and I will give my email to Usiwe, and I'm available at any time, even at 2 a.m. if you want to. I'm usually awake at those times. But please don't text me at 2 a.m. I'm probably studying. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you so much, Randile. And then we'll go to the introduction of the guest speaker by Mahambehlala.
Thank you so much. Let me say, chair of the meeting. Let me take this opportunity and greet each and everyone who is in this place. And thank you so much for having me here. My sincere apologies for arriving so late. I got lost somewhere. If how, I don't know, but I apologize for that. Okay, my name is Mahambehlala. My surname is Wana. I'm a student here. I'm doing IT. I'm a final year student here. So yeah, that's me. Mine is very simple and very short and nice. What I'm going to do is to introduce our guest speaker for today. She is a poetic soul, a poet, a storyteller, a motivational speaker as well. Port Elizabeth native Leleto Mahambehlala, effectively known as a poetic soul, first heeded to her calling for poetry in 2003, driven by her desire to empower women and girl children in schools. Poetic Soul began her career by launching and showcasing her talent as an underground poet in her hometown. Her talent and drive have seen her blossom into a recognizable brand within the Eastern Cape province. She has performed alongside the great poets of South Africa's vocal power, such as Lebo Mashile, Mac Manaka, and Sibongile Khumalo. Her attention and establishment into poetry began a journey that led to the launch of her dubbed album titled It Is Ours in 2015. In 2013, yes, Poetic Soul lost her eyesight completely. Despite the anticipated and obvious challenges that came with that sudden loss of visual senses, she holds the belief that everything happening is it's a hint for how life prepares you for the next dimension. Wow. Her early discipline in journal keeping coupled with a razor-sharp memory, have shaped her in a ways she could not have expected. Driving has been the foremost thing that she misses from the days when she was visually able. Leletu is none less as assertive that she can do most visual able person can. I'm just a girl, a very happy girl. Closing marks. Today, she deals as an audience with each presenting opportunity, having had an improved performance alongside Simpiwe Dana in 2015. This performance served as launching and paid for invitation to perform later that month in Johannesburg alongside notable poets such as Mzwakhe Mbuli, Mac Manaka, and Pops Mohammed at the closing of Africa Month Night of Poet event. As a result of exposure and subsequent privileges cataloged by the creativity and flair, PoeticSoul is now a blossoming businesswoman and community developer. Her love for poetry and passion for isiXhosa earned her an opportunity to work with Nelson Mandela University, offering and teaching performance poetry to high school learners between 2014 and 2016, with a focus on the development of isiXhosa. Her penchant for words and poetry shall one day culminate in her becoming a published author. That's her. It's none other than Leletu Mahambehlala. Thank you so much. Over to her.
And everything else. Okay. All right. Now I'm just trying to check because when I speak, I tend to just, run wild with all the different languages that I think I can, master. But anyway, we'll see. If you get lost in anything that I say, we will then address that during Q&A. Is that all right? Sure. My name is Leletu Mahambehlala. I am PoeticSoul. I think the way that you address yourself, my dad has always said, is very important. When you say my name is, you are admitting to the fact that somebody else named you what you are. But when you say I am, you mean to say, that's who I am. That's how I live my life, right? So I live my life as PoeticSoul, as a soul that is poetic. But my dear parents named me Leletu Ilizwe. The world is ours. Wow. Yes. My father was quite political and my mom was quite submissive. So she agreed to it all. The theme for today is the true disability in life is a bad attitude. And I hope I don't show you such, that I have a bad attitude, but rather I am a girl with attitude. I like that about myself. Ndizalwe ndibona. I was born with sight, as you heard when Avila was introduced, and I lost my sight in 2013. And throughout my life as a young girl, I grew up with the understanding that a lot of people within society regarded people with disabilities as rude, unhappy, and oozing an ugly attitude. you would find that sometimes people would make examples of how when they see a person in a wheelchair and they try to assist them by pushing that person on the wheelchair would say, you know, such things. And general people within society do not see that as the person saying, don't worry, I can help myself, but rather that they're impatient, they are rude, and they ooze bad attitude, an ugly attitude towards life. And when I lost my sight in 2013, those words and those perceptions did not go on mute. I remembered them loudly with every step that I took. I'm going to go back just to let you in on how I lost my sight. It's not going to be a long story, I promise. But I lost my sight in 2013, coming back from a camp I was enjoying with artists from the UK. And we had based ourselves between Ingqushwa and Port Alfred, Kwilale ekuthiwa Hamburg. And there I noticed that my sight was a bit blurry in the nighttime, especially. I needed somebody to assist me. And when I came back, because I was also having a series of headaches, I came back and I went to see a doctor. But a week later, nothing was helping. Instead, it was getting worse. So one Sunday morning, after a very cold Saturday night out listening to jazz music at Tinaga, I woke up with the headache to beat all headaches. Pounding at the back of my head. Because and that was the beginning of the end of my sight and the beginning of my new life as well. Called on my parents, went to see a doctor. Doctor said, your pressure went really high. You almost had a stroke. It affected your optic nerves. But let's see what happens if we try to lower the pressure. We lowered the pressure, but the sight was fading and the sight was gone within a space of 1 week. It was gone. And I probably stayed an extra week at home during that time. Cried one night, woke my dad up. We are very traditional people at home. We are, we pray to the underground gang a lot. We also pray to the Heavenly Father as well, because my mom is a Methodist woman, and my father, so I woke my father up, and I'm much closer to my dad. So I woke my father up and I said, Dada, I'm not feeling okay. I'm crying at this time. And we went to beg with the ancestors to show us what's going on. But still, as you can tell, to this day, my sight did not return. I was told by traditional healers that the problem here was that I needed to heed the calling and become a healer, something that I agreed to, partly out of desperation, but also because I've been walking the streets with the understanding that I do have a calling, because everybody that I meet after I perform, they would say such, that you have a special calling. Something about you when you perform just drives me wild, and. So when they said I have a calling, I was not really shocked. But I said a prayer to God and I said, listen, if you want me here, this is what I'm gonna do. But if this is not what you want me to do, you will yank me out of this. And lo and behold, within about 6 months, dear God yanked me out of it. But did not say that you're not a healer, just said this is not the path you're supposed to take just because you are a healer. So that's basically the long and short of how I lost my sight. How did I navigate life without my sight when I grew up and acquired a certain level of independence, even from my parents? I was now driving a car. I was living on my own in a flat. I was starting out as a business person because I quit my job in 2010. I stopped working I was a candidate attorney at the time for the state attorney. I started here at NMU. And in 2010, it was actually 2011, towards Valentine's Day. I'll never forget that day. I went to my boss and I said, Mandata, I want to leave because I don't believe this is the kind of work I want to do for the rest of my life. I think I'm occupying somebody else's position. And I think I will serve better when I do the thing that feeds even my soul, rather than the thing that feeds my stomach. So I want to quit. and I want to go on and live, you know, a carefree life, because I am a carefree person. So on Valentine's Day of that year was my last day at work. They were having a braai celebrating love. I was in the braai celebrating my freedom. And I left and I started working full-time as a performance poet, doing workshops, praying for the next gig, because you never know if it's coming or not. And you know, that's what I did. And up to this day, I live that life. I am sustained by the love of poetry, and just the love of people. And also egotistically, I'll admit, the love of my own voice. So I live life like that. I move around in spaces, trying to make sure that somebody somewhere can hear me and they can relate with my words, and they can, you know, find some form of healing through what I have to say. But the other thing that enabled me to be able to, you know, navigate life as now a blind person, and for the longest time, I never, ever, ever appreciated anybody who referred to me as blind. I would always say, I can't see. Never, I'm blind. Because for me, I did not want this thing to be a blanket I wear. I wanted it to just be the one thing out of my entire life that I cannot do. Because that's all a disability is, right? It's like in your phone or your computer, when they say a certain function is disabled, it does not mean the entire computer or the entire program is not working. Am I correct? It's just that particular function has been disabled. So I looked at it like that, that I have this thing that's not working, but the rest of me is still fly. The rest of me is still hard at work. The rest of me can still do amazing things. So for a while, I still don't like to step into spaces and be introduced as a blind person. I remember once my dad called me. He was a bit stressed. He was not happy with it. But I guess at home, we sometimes try to cope with stress by laughing. So he called me laughing. I'm at the National Arts Festival, and he just saw an article that was written by the Weekend Post saying the blind poet goes to Grahamstown. And my dad calls him, they're referring to you as a blind poet. I'm like, I don't like this. Like, hey, Danam, you're a blind poet now. You're not just a poet. I'm like, now I'm not sure. Because essentially all I ever want to be is a poet. I don't want to be a female poet. I don't want to be a Black poet. I don't want to be a blind poet. I just want to be a poet. And I think that's the one thing that we need to drive towards, to not be, you know, to not be anything else beyond what we're actually doing. How we get it done is not the question. So we shouldn't be leading people to think, okay, we're going to introduce the blind poet, and then the blind poet steps on stage and everybody's wondering, how does she remember the words? How does she write them down? So now they're not listening to my poetry anymore. They're rather trying to figure out how I find myself on the stage. How did she match her clothes? How does she do it? Oh my gosh, she speaks so lively, because sometimes people with disabilities are expected to be shelled in, right? That's the expectation. I'm going to tell you the story just now, but that's the expectation, that we will fade in the presence of other people. And when you don't fade in the presence of other people, people think you are outside of the norm of the community to which you belong. And it's strange, because I've never considered myself to belong to any one community. The community of Black women, I do not belong to, because they're too radical for my liking. The community of lawyers, I didn't really belong, because the clothes were too formal. There's just something that for me speaks against belonging, speaks against conforming to expectations of other people. I rather just live and surprise myself, because sometimes I surpass my own expectations. And I think that's how we should live our lives. So as I say, the words of how rude people with disability were kept ringing in my head. And I told myself from the onset that I would not live a life that makes other people feel uncomfortable. But two, I would not live a life that makes me compromise who I am because I'm different to other people. So I am not trying to make sure I fit into the able-bodied person's life, but I'm also not trying to make sure they fit into my life. I want to live a life that allows both of us to be in the space, allows me to fumble and find my way around the space, and allows them to say what you're looking for is to your right, and not hate them because they're acting out of a sympathy or an empathy of understanding the difficulty of looking and trying to find something. It's important to teach people how to treat us. It's very important that we're able to say, I don't know how to work in the kitchen when it's filled with other people, because they become too concerned with me. They wonder too much. So I would rather you sit in the lounge and then I call on you and I ask, is this the black pepper? Is this the cayenne pepper? This is in that, rather than you be in my space with 6 other people drinking wine and we're all sitting here saying, spice, then I'm not cooking anymore. I'd rather allow you to cook. So the navigation of life came first from that my attitude towards life would not change just because now I felt I was being done an injustice by my sight being taken away. Secondly, it was for me to expect nothing from life, but to accept everything life gives me. Right? Expect nothing and accept everything. It's very important when something bad happens to you, or whatever you perceive as bad happens to you in your life, that you immediately find a way to accept it. Because we all believe that everything works together for the greater good. And do you know that if I had not accepted the loss of my sight, today I would be worried about my ID that is lost and how I need to go to Home Affairs and it's such a long queue. But now when I went to Home Affairs, I did not stand in the long queue because all I needed to say was, I can't see. Guys, there's privilege in everything, ne? Guys, guys, there is privilege in everything. And all you need to do is to find the sweet spot. Find the sweeter spot and live your life knowing that there are things that God knows that I'm born to be celebrated. And God knows I don't need to stand in queues. So what does God do? Gives me the thing that will enable me to walk right in front of everybody else and get what needs to be done for me. And you know what? It does not get done for you when you carry that bad attitude. Everybody runs away from you. But when I step forward and I greet with love, and I greet with care, just for the fact that the next person is human too, things get done for me. I remember I used to want, when I studied law, it was because of Ellie McBeal. Do you guys know Ellie McBeal? The kids. Are you guys too young for Ellie McBeal? Too young, ne? Hey. But the older people know Ellie McBeal. Ellie McBeal was a lawyer, an American lawyer. There was a program like SABC 3. She used to walk up the stairs of the courthouse wearing a red suit, carrying this black briefcase. And she had so many challenges in her life. She wanted a husband and a baby. That sometimes she was in court and she's trying to address this case, but there's a baby dancing in front of her eyes because this is a traumatic thing for her, that she's not getting this baby that she wants. But I wanted to be like her professionally. I wanted to walk up the high court wearing this red suit and my black briefcase, but also I wanted to know that I would have an assistant who's, on wait for me. So I would give them a call and say, please get this done. I wanted to have a driver who would drive my black limousine. I dreamt about all of it. And when I lost my sight, I thought, hey, some of my dreams are going to disappear. But I did not stop just because of that thought. I did not stop trying to pursue my dreams. I pursued my dreams still, though I had long forgotten about law, but still I was working very hard trying to get into corporate spaces. And one day we went to Nangoza Jebe. You all know where Nangoza Jebe is. There was one of these political gatherings there, and I was invited to come and perform. When I got there, it was already, the crowd had already gathered in the space, and I was to be taken backstage. And I remember getting there and getting off a cab with a guy who still, who still drives me around today. And I was with 2 other friends. And when we got outside, there were 2 other friends of ours that we greeted. So now it was me and 4 other people. And we're walking in, and I've got this scarf and I've got my bag. And Zonsi says, let me carry your bag for you. The other one wants to carry the scarf. The other one's like, let's go and ask where we're supposed to go. And, you know, for a moment, my soul, my body was moving with it, but my soul stood still and watched what was happening. And my soul said to me, girl, here is your dream. My soul said to me, girl, 4 people are waiting on you. 4 people are here with you, trying to make sure that you get to the front with no hassles. And my soul had to take that moment just to say, thank you, Lord. Because none of those people were making me feel like I need them, but they were making me feel like they were here for me. So find the sweet spot. There is always a sweet spot. And you need to learn to listen to the voice inside you, because that's your soul. It will remind you of the thing you said you want, and it will say to you, Nancy. Everything you said you want is right in front of you. But sometimes when we fail to accept what happens, it means we are holding on to what was, and we cannot receive what is. It's important for us to have the ability to receive what is, make space for it. Because once you're holding on to yesterday's things, there's no space for new furniture in your life. It's occupied. And the old furniture doesn't serve you, right? And the new furniture could be serving you better. But because you're holding on to a dining room table, you can't eat on the table anymore because it's out of balance, instead of accepting that it's worn out now and something new needs to come into your life. That which is gone can no longer serve you, but that which is here as everything that you need in that moment. How do I get by in my life on a daily basis without my sight? I rely on the people around me. I rely on the people around me. They are able to see. And I celebrate their ability to see. I don't resent them because they can see, but I rely and celebrate their ability to see. I'm here with a friend of mine today. He drove me here. I forgot, I don't know where I put my cane in the house. By the way, I don't have a white cane. I carry a nice cane that looks like a pimp's cane. It's black. Guys, I don't share, guys. It does. In a steamer, it's chile, you want? The shot and jungle fagi in Japan, frying, you want me? Imani goes and chocolate. So I don't use a white cane because I believe the navigation of our life is always up to us. We don't have to all be the same because we can't see. Right? I don't have to be uniform and walk around with a white cane if I'm uncomfortable with it. So I don't use a white cane. I don't have a guide dog, but I've got friends who guide me through life. I've got friends who not only are assisting me to walk forward, but will also be able to see with their eyes that this might not be in your favor. So keep good people around you, yeah? Keep great people around you. For those of you who come from, the special needs schools, right? Where all the learners were without sight, where all the learners were deaf, and all the different disabilities that are out there, right? It might be very difficult to step into a space where the majority of people are now able-bodied. But use that to your advantage. Make friends. Let them know how to be with you and around you. Make a difference in their lives by teaching them how to treat you. Because when you teach one person how to treat you as one person, you have actually enabled them to live with an entire community of people with disabilities. It's not just about the treatment of you, but the treatment of everybody else. I was in hospital recently going to visit my dad. When was it? 2 days ago. And they said only one person can walk in. And I said, huh? Well, me and this guy are one person. Because my eyes are outside of me, right? So me and this guy are one person, and they did not understand what I was saying. But eventually we walked in because the doctor came and said, no, we can walk in. But as we're walking out, I said to him, Simsi, I need to talk to the security people because my worry is not for me. I'm a very vocal person. Fortunately, I've got a legal background. So I can speak my mind. I know what my rights are. But what about the other young girl whose dad is in hospital and they can't access them because now only one person can walk in? We need to talk to them. And I went and I said, guys, I need you to show me the right office, the email address, the phone number of the person who can change this law to be in favor of people that need assistance. We cannot function this way. You cannot block access to our loved ones because we are less abled than you. I need you guys to show me. And they said, no, Sissy, but you've walked in. I'm like, it's not about me now. I'm realizing that you're going to treat other people this way. And I don't want you to, because they might not be able to speak like I do. So I need for us to visit these rules that have been put, because I understand when they were written down, they did not think about me. And now I'm saying I can at least add my voice to making sure that we think about everybody else. So it's very important that in the teaching of how to be treated, you remember that it's not just about your treatment as one individual. It's about the treatment of the next person and the next person as well. Because sometimes your vocality will assist the one whose voice cannot be amplified to make sure that they, and because even a person who can't speak, right, will struggle to go and visit their loved one without assistance. We need to make sure that we speak not only for ourselves, but for the others as well, and constantly teach people. I greet everybody who is at the till, at a spa, at a ShopRite, at a whatever, and I tell them, I show them that I am a normal person, I am kind-hearted, I just need a little bit of assistance. At a restaurant, I will sit down and I will say, my love, please make sure that you put my drink in my hand because I cannot see. And the next time they bring the next thing, there's a different feel to it all. Because I've taken the time to teach, instead of howling at them and saying, because those things do happen. I will admit that those things do happen. There are people who, because of their disability and the resentment of their disability, they tend to lash out at the whole world when there is no need for that. Life is much easier when you accept that you're going through a divorce. Accept it, right? I mean, I'm not your husband. I did nothing to you. So you don't have to lash out at me because you're going through what you're going through. It's the same thing with disability as well. We don't have to lash out at anyone because we are who we are. We are made the way we've been made, and we have chosen the life that we have chosen, because that's what I believe. Spiritually, I believe I chose my path. I sat down with God and we decided, and I said, those parents down there, that short lady, that tall man, I feel like they're perfect for me. I want to be mothered by that woman. I want to be fathered by that man. But now, God, how do you think we're going to make the impact you see me making in future? How do you think we can make sure that, you know, all people are treated with the same respect in life? How can we do it, God? And God said, hey, I don't know. We can perhaps make you a celebrity with 5 million followers on Twitter, or we can, I don't know, what do you think about losing your sight? And I said, hey, God, hey, maybe the sight thing is nice because 5 million people will be too much for me. I can't respond to all those people. Maybe sight would be okay, right? Because at least it would still make sure that I can speak with my mouth, I can talk to my people. By the time I lose my sight, technology would have been so advanced, this, and I chose it, guys. That's what I believe, eh? I chose it. The thing though amazing about God is that this is my belief, guys. I'm not trying to introduce a new religion. This is just me and how I relate to my spirituality. Then, you know, God listens to all that rambling that we do in that little date of ours. And then when it's my time to be conceived, he presses delete on the memory button so that I remember none of it. Because if you know how the dance will end, you might not partake in it. You know that song? Do you know that song that Dave calls The Dance? It plays every Sunday on Metro FM. That's exactly what it is. If you know how the dance is gonna end, that this person is gonna step on your toes 55 times before you actually get the tango right, you might decide not to partake in it. So you might not know that you chose the life you're living, but you did. You might not know how it ends, so you have to live it so that it can end, right? Because if you keep questioning why you are the way that you are, why God would have chosen these particular circumstances for you, why we like to ask those questions, right? You are not living your life anymore. You are living a life filled with resentment, and that space is not a moving space. It is better to be water and flow and change form at every opportunity you get. It is better to accept what is going on in your life so that you live your life with less wrinkles, less ulcers in your stomach. Do you know that stress causes such things? The ulcers, the hyperventilation, anxiety, and most illnesses, I believe, and that have to do with emotions and mental health, they have a lot to do with us failing to accept where we are. But if we can accept, we'll find that life flows much better. I'm not saying it is easy. It is the hardest thing when you have to accept this Chile. But when you are a person who has found their center or their true calling in life, right? You are able to bring yourself back quicker than the person who's still searching. So you want to kick and scream and say, but God, this is not what we agreed to. And you quickly bring yourself back to the center and say, Gonje, it all works together for the greater good. Yes. Gonje, because you can't unknow what you know. So I would like to say, in the space of varsity, where you've lived your entire life being labeled as a person with special needs, going to a school for children with special needs, and then coming to a varsity that does not really, have classes, exclusively for people with special needs, and you've got to mix and mingle with the rest of the world. Please accept that you get to do it. I was listening to Steve Harvey the other day. We're in the car, Millie, and Steve Harvey was saying, when you get up in the morning, don't say, hey, I've got to get up. I've got to go to gym. I've got to study. I've got to pass, Rather change that got to get and say, I get to wake up. I get to go to gym. Because then you change you create your life as a life that's filled with opportunities than a life that's filled with responsibilities and challenges that are weighing on you. So having come from a high school where everybody was just like you, and you are now in a space where so many people are different from you, please realize that you get to be part of that experience. It's an opportunity. It is not a challenge or a responsibility that weighs heavy on you, but it's rather an advantage, an opportunity, a privilege for you to be in the space. You get to do it. You get to teach somebody how to treat you. You get to represent so many people. You get to overcome what is expected of you. You get to surpass everybody's expectations. You get to be the best you can be. Guys, you must go. Is this a guys the Pesha University? Hey guys, COVID is horrible, ne? COVID is a mess. I don't understand what varsity is without those varsity festivals in the beginning of the year where you see all the first years performing and everything else. But do those things, be social. Zakoni Pesh? Nyan? Shem, when was the last one? It was what? Oh, Uncle Waffles. Why did nobody tell us? Why did nobody share that with us? But I'm trying to say, living your life with a disability is not about being a church mouse. Be as vivacious as you can be while you can be. Because there is a gone moment. Does not return again. You must be out there. You must live your life. You must participate in everything that you can participate in. I wish you guys had come to see me. Was it 2018? My mom was shouting at me because I was standing on top of crates and walking on tables at a performance that I was doing. And I was shaking my body like this. By the time we left, my mom said to me, but challenge yourself all the time. Tell yourself that there's something that somebody is thinking I cannot do. Let's see if it is true that I really can't. Because ilizwe liyakwazi uzi-adjusta so that you can be enabled to do the thing that you want to do. Live outside of your fears. Live outside of all of your fears. Because fears are nothing but stumbling blocks. Once you overcome a fear, you realize there was nothing to be scared of. There was nothing to be scared of. So live outside of your fears and know that there is somebody else who's fearing something more than you. And show everybody that you are the greatest you can be, and nobody has got the ability to say what you want to say, what you are here to do. It's only you who can do yourself the favor to make sure that you don't live this earth unheard or unseen. Make sure. Gobombako, suvuma. I don't like that life. I will be the first one to confess that sometimes I go to that place and forget. Who needs this kind of slango? Shall I pay I'm dealing the Tamils again? Tamils, I was born as a I'll be the first one to admit that, you know, as I said, guys, let's find the sweet spot. There is nothing wrong with us admitting that your disadvantage or your inability to do one thing you can sometimes use to your advantage. There's nothing wrong with that. When we were asked to do applications, favor or consideration will be given to applicants that have disabilities. Why not take advantage of that and do amazing things? Do the most amazing of things. Be able to say, I did it with my disability. I did it. And know that nobody here, even if they do not have a visible disability, no one here can do anything on their own. No one. I once read a status, this lady was saying, would you date a person with a disability? And they all commented, and this one was so distraught saying, Eish, I once went on a date with this guy and he came and I noticed that his one leg was not, you know, was not the same size as the other one. And he had one arm, it was a whole lot of things, but he had the most beautiful smile and was such a good person. But after that date, I did not go back. I blue ticked him, I blocked him. 2 years later, I'm walking in Green Acres and I see this guy walking with a lady on the Ismagot. What, my God, my heart died because I realized that could have been me. And, you know, I commented on that status and I said, I think the one thing we fail to remember all the time is that we're all living with different disabilities. There is nobody in the world who is a perfect human being without a disability. Some people are emotionally disabled, and I think that's the worst kind. Because they cannot be in spaces with people and feel what it is to really be human. Some people are socially disabled, right? Some are financially disabled. But essentially, all of us have a disability that we have to live through, that we have to live with, that we have to survive every single day. And so looking down on yourself because you have to ask somebody to push you in your wheelchair is nothing compared to the person who's looking down on themselves because they've got an inability to feel, to think, you know, to dance with other people on a stage. There are people who just can't. Social disability is also the worst. People who just can't walk into restaurants because they start hyperventilating, you know? And Tina, we've got the ability to walk into spaces, to roll into spaces, to limp into spaces, to fumble into spaces. And we still block ourselves because we don't look like the rest of them. We shouldn't do that. Find the sweet spot, find the beauty in you. Yes, I don't walk out of my house until I can feel it. But yeah. Babonse, Chanakon. Do that for yourselves as well. And it's not just about physical beauty, you know. It's about realizing that internally we're right as well. You're good with yourself, you're good within your heart, and you're ready to embrace the world as it is. And the world is out there ready to embrace you as well, but people are scared. Some able-bodied people are really scared because they don't know how. And whose responsibility is it to teach them the how? It's ours. Let's teach them the how. And delete that narrative of people with disabilities are rude, they are unkind, and they ooze an ugly attitude. Thank you very much. Yes, I like that. I like that. Yeah. We can take questions and answers. Questions and comments. Sorry, I have the answers right. Questions and comments. Yeah. I would be so sad if there was no question.
Comment.
Because it means nobody's been moved.
Oh, no comment.
Yeah, sure.
No, I'm just happy. I'm just happy from all the motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel more than anything motivated to want to do more, to want to be part of allowing other people to be themselves in the way that they want to, and they to me as well. Yeah, I think I'm just more than anything so grateful that I actually got to be invigorated even more to sort of not keep with the stereotypes that are there, because most of the time really most people shy away from even having friends that are disabled, maybe because of those stereotypes and those mentalities and those things that have been said, attitude-wise and everything else. But I think I am more happy now, or more inspired to actually want to be in an environment or create an environment where there's that freedom of not looking down on other people for what I perceive as different from me, but allowing that space for them to be themselves. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, that is the contribution.
Yeah, you totally make sense. It
Thank
makes
you.
sense to me. And it just reminded me of how with the walking with different people, because I don't have, I know rich white people, they hire a person as a guide to walk with them everywhere. I don't have that money or that time, really. It's just not gonna work in life. So with my friends, because there's so many people around me, I don't walk the same way with any of them. Because one, wants to hold hands. The other one is okay with me locking elbows with them. But at all times, I also have to remember that the experience of me being blind is not just my experience. It's the experience of the next person as well. So yeah, I totally get you that it's about creating those spaces where people can all be free and they can get to experience how to be themselves, even around you and therefore outside of you as well, because that's also an experience for them. A story with two people is not just about one person, right? Yeah, so we both get to live our experience through that moment. Anybody else?
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm a special good afternoon. I just want to say thank you for this presentation. Actually, yeah, I was surprised because we were flatmates in Veritas. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you for this. You've taught us the acceptance of yourself and the acceptance of other people. And you've taught us that we don't know what will happen to us tomorrow.
Mhm.
So we must be able to accept ourselves. And accept, you are able to accept yourself. You will be able to accept other people as well. So thank you for this.
Thank you very much. Of course.
Okay, let me come in, Lily too. No, sit Lubom here.
Are you going to ask a question? You sound like you're like, okay, let me change the subject. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your talk. Yes, I want to ask a question, maybe on behalf of anyone who may have a difficulty, especially those people who have invisible disabilities, because you know, a person who is using a wheelchair, one may see that this person is using a wheelchair, so he's not going to be in a queue. Let us serve that person, right? Then here I am, I have an invisible disability. Do I need to identify myself to say, I am blind, so I'm not going to be in a queue? What do I need to do? Here the students are queuing at financial aid, or they are queuing at the access and enrollment office. They want to be served, but they have these invisible disabilities. Do they need to identify themselves? What is it that they may do? All right. The second leg of this question, now that we are talking inclusion, all right, where does it start and where does it end when it comes to these privileges?
Little privileges.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So on the first question, I think my approach to it, right, is that it's not only about what I need to do as a person with an invisible disability, but there is also the other prong in it, which is the education, right? Because it doesn't matter. I mean, I made that example of me walking into the hospital, and I did state that I cannot see that I am blind and I need assistance, but still it was problematic because the security people were what? Not educated enough about the situation, and they couldn't even try to think outside of the box because all they know is the rules they've been given. So even if I said today, yes, state, because of the fact that you are also aware that it's invisible, let us not be unfair and assume that people will just sense it. You have to be able to say, because I also know kuthiwa abantu ndine-tendency yobajonga emehlweni, and it's a bit unbelievable when I say I'm blind, right? Especially if I'm just going to be standing here and I'm moving this way, because so I try to, you know, move my attention around. Then the other person will not believe it, that I cannot see. However, I do believe that there is that one responsibility on myself to state it. When I went to vote and I was walking into the line, and one voting officer could see that, okay, but when I got to the front door, this lady said, what do you have from the doctor to prove? I promise you. And I'm like, what? Are you saying I'm supposed to walk around, you know, with a piece of paper and whatever, you know what I mean? Letting you know that this is my condition. No, that's not what usually happens. I'm just here to vote. You can decide that I need to go to the back of the line, then I'll stand at the back of the line and I'll do the thing. It will stay with you in your conscience because you don't have the education. So I think it's very important that we do some form of education on everyone, not just because it's pointless for us to sit here and have learners or students with disabilities and telling them that you must state your invisible disability and you must state it, you know, calmly and not be fighting with the people. We can talk about all sorts of things that you can try and do to state your invisible disability. However, if the person behind the desk or at the door does not buy your story, they don't care. You know, because with a social anxiety situation where a person just cannot do a lot of people, and it's becoming scary, and it's happening a lot, that people are living online now, right? They're shopping online, they're buying their groceries online because they're scared to go to malls, they're scared to do so many things. And that's actually a serious issue. That means if that person is going to be at the queue and here's one person laughing and they start hyperventilating, we need to push them to the front of the line because they can't do it. They really, really can't. So if the officer is not informed on that there is such a thing, they're not going to do anything about it. And especially with us Black people, because I would hear Ektalo. Yabana, I was Ektalo, that's just, we don't understand a lot of things, and so we need to do education first. But I do always say that people cannot assume that I can't see just because I know that I can't see. So that does not disappear. That responsibility on me to say, this is my condition and I need assistance in this way. I know. The reason I always say that the reason I do sometimes need assistance in a certain way is because I also take somebody else's time. Do you realize if I now have to ask Umeli to accompany me to SARS and whatnot, and have to stand in a long queue, I've taken away his entire day just because they had to come and function as my eyes. And that's the reason we push people to the front of the line, especially when they need secondary assistance outside of themselves. That's why we do it. Where does it begin and where does it end? I think one, for me, it begins with those with disabilities stating their needs, stating what it is they need. I sit in a lot of artistic committees where we discuss issues of the arts and how the arts is being treated by government. And one day we were sitting there and we were talking that they spoke about sports and we realized that the reason they never spoke on the arts is because nobody from the arts was there to say, don't forget about the arts. So that thing, and it's something that can just be fixed by typing, but before it can be fixed by typing it in, it needs to be fixed by making sure that the voices are there. So one, it starts with us being able to say, these are our needs. If I have to fill in an application form online, it needs to be in a format, there needs to be options of formats that I can also access and fill in so that I can do it independently. Right? I'm not asking for special application forms for people with disabilities, but I'm saying create it in a way that even those with disabilities can access it. Right? If we're talking, for instance, about the queue, maybe then create a queue for people with disabilities. Right, which will then ensure that when they get to the place, they stand up, they know how it feels to stand at the back of the line, but at least it's a back of the line that will consider their needs. And not just a line where there's 100 other people who are moving faster, there's all sorts of things that abanye abantu are not as vocal, because remember, when in Black culture as well, I don't know shame about other cultures, but in Black culture, there's that attitude of a child who's born with disabilities, a shelter in. So you realize that I can't have voice to speak for themselves because those blockile, and now this person is an adult, they have to stand up for themselves, and it's difficult. And I think that's why sometimes they tend to fight when they speak, because it's frustrating that now they get to speak for themselves and they don't understand that there are different ways of addressing themselves. So Yilondo, I think it begins there and it ends at education. It ends at education, being able to teach everyone to know how to treat people, period. Not people with disability, just people, period. I will go straight to customer service. It is the worst thing to realize that it seems like people are naturally unkind until they know that you need kindness. That's what I've experienced. When I am at a shop and we're pushing a trolley and this man says to me, can you please move forward? Hey, all over the place. And I'm like, sorry, sir, I'm just waiting for my partner who's pulling the trolley to come. And the sir then says, no, man, you're wasting our time. And I'm said, listen, I'm just asking for your patience because I can't push this trolley forward. I cannot see. I'm waiting for somebody who's assisting me. then attitude changes. Then attitude changes. Oh, sorry, man, I couldn't tell. Must you be able to tell before you are kind?
You know,
Guys, are you waiting first for a reason to be kind? Like there are prerequisites that unlock your kindness. And it's not normal. That's just not normal. And it's so sad because that's a realization I have, that it seems like a great majority of people are just unkind people. And they do me the favor of kindness because they realize I'm a little bit below them in their understanding. You see that? They're like, oh, Shane, doch. She needs a little bit of help. No, I just need a little bit of kindness like everybody else, like everyone else. It's not about, because for instance, I'm still trying to get to the point where I can meet a store manager and say, is it possible that you can have, floor assistants that don't leave the floor, so that if I come into the shop, I can even be able to come on my own, and then ask this person to push the trolley with me, and we fill it in and I go and pay and I leave, right? Is it possible that we can start thinking about such things? Because currently, not every food item is written in Braille. So there are still those struggles. And to a certain extent, where there's not one approach to everything, because a person like me who was not born blind, I can't read Braille. As easy as a person who started at grade not reading Braille. You feel me? So obviously, even if all food items were brailled at the shop, that would still block my access to them, right? So there are things that I think about sometimes that maybe we should talk to store managers, go to SPAR and say, listen, it would be nice if you had a shopping assistant that could literally just move with me and help me to get these things, and then I pay and then I leave. Because I'm not necessarily, I don't want to call SPY and say, please deliver for me. I'm a social being. I'm really, I'm a social animal. I want to be in the spaces of people. I want to walk around and push my trolley. So for all of that, I keep thinking about ways and means to make sure that life is easier for different kinds of people. Yeah, so it starts at us being able to state what we want, and it ends when everybody is educated and can now be able to deal with situations. Because even with HIV, remember, it started like that. The stigma of HIV, I don't know if it's completely gone, but I also know that more and more people understand, more and more people get it, that even when you say, when you're talking about a person with HIV, then, the person who's listening to you can be able to say, no, but I don't understand why they have to die. Nobody has to die now of HIV, because there's help everywhere. And so it's a slow process, but that's what needs to happen. Make sure that those with disabilities have a voice, and then make sure that those without disabilities have information and are enabled to work with. Yeah.
Maybe let me come in again.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Please, guys, don't be scared, yeah? I don't bite.
For this one, Leleto, I think I will need your experience.
Uh-huh.
When you check in a hotel,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you state your disability? What happens? I'm asking this question because one time I was going with a person who is blind,
Mm-hmm.
and we checked in that particular hotel, and it was for the first time the student was checking in to that hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So my expectation,
Mm-hmm.
was that when we checked in, of course, he's not familiar with an environment.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing, he navigated the way to the room, and he's not familiar with the room. He doesn't know anything in the room. So my expectation was that there was going to be and assistance from the hotel.
The hotel staff.
Yes. To do just an orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we didn't say that I'm going with a blind person here. We didn't state that, okay? But when the arrangement was done, the reservation, of course, it was stated that one of the guests is blind. So here we are now, we are checking. So there was no one who went with this person to orientate them in the room. It didn't know where is the shower, where is the bed, what is in the room. So I just want to hear your experience towards that.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of an experience where I was almost alone, because I'm always moving with a human being. But I know that, for instance, at one hotel, when we came in, and it was a number of people with disabilities, the staff did not assist much. We had to say we need assistance, because, for instance, if I'm walking with one person and I've got my cane and they've got me, there's no way to carry all the luggage, as an example. So we obviously need help with that, but we still had to state there as well. And then further on, having stated, it's a matter of, can you please wait just on the side? I'm going to help you just now. So there's no immediate attention that's being given on you, because you almost feel like an inconvenience at that time, because this person is rushing. There's 20 people that I have to check in. So just wait on the sidelines for me. And there's no provision for that. But we did address the issue that accessibility is not only about having ramps at a space. Accessibility is also about making sure that the person is comfortable in their room, making sure that they know exactly where to go. So even there, it's about the education. People, and shame with education, people really do change their attitude towards you. The moment you show them that I really do need this. And for a while, I think, as I say, because it's a slow process, it's going to take us a while to get to the point where they've got special people. For instance, with iPhone, I have an iPhone, and I bought an iPhone because of the accessibility thereof for myself. But do you know that at the iStore, there is no one who understands how voiceover works? I kid you not. They literally just say, what do you usually do? I'm like, what do you mean? What do I usually do? Are you asking like before I had an iPhone or now? I've never experienced this thing. You need to show me how it works. But that's the thing. It's a very slow process, as I'm saying. And it needs to get to the point, because I did say that I said that perhaps you need to take somebody through voiceover to understand how voiceover works, figure out different ways, be in communication with the creators of voiceover, so that we can work on how it creates this accessibility for the people that use it. Because right now, if I walk into a store and there's no special desk, or even if it's not a special desk, but somebody who specializes in voiceover, then we're doomed. You know, so it's frustrating. It's going to take a while, because we're not all Steve Gekanas. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I was at a hotel with Steve Gekana. We're doing a program in Grahamstown for the National Arts Festival. And he walks so fast. He took me from backstage to the front of the stage. And I was like, Dada, we're not going to bump into anything, right? And said, come with me. And he led me, because he's so comfortable. He's so used to it. He knows how to orientate himself properly and such that he can help other people. But not all of us have that. And so we do need those spaces created. And as I say, perhaps there isn't a need all the time. I don't go to all my meetings with people. You know, I can call a cab, because I do have a regular cab driver. I don't advise anybody who's outside who is blind to be catching an Uber on their own. It doesn't make sense. I've done it though, but don't do it. Don't do it. Especially if you're a girl. You just need to also consider the prevailing circumstances of this time, right? So I do ask my cab driver to drop me off at an office for me to go have my meeting on my own, because I also enjoy keeping things to myself in terms of my plans for my business. I don't want the next person to hear what I'm thinking about. And so sometimes I just walk and I go do it on my own, you know? So it will take time, such that sometimes if I'm going to a meeting, say at the SABC, I'll call and I'll say to the person, I'm on my way, I'm not with anybody else, please wait for me outside. And then they will say, there's a security guy waiting for you outside. So you see, those provisions can be made just as long as we continue to patiently teach people how to treat us. That's what it is, unfortunately. The majority of the people in the world are without disabilities in terms of physicality, right? So the world operates on those terms mostly. And slowly, surely, we need to raise our voices to make sure that they remember that we also exist in the space. For the longest time, people from the LGBTI community wanted to be included, right? They wanted to be seen and to be heard. And only now are we getting to the space of not calling people him or her, through them teaching us. So it takes time. Do you have space for 3 more, 2 more, 3 more? We don't need 3 more.
Yeah, no, we can take 3 more.
Okay.
If there are any.
Yes, if there are any. Going once, going twice. Gone. Gone. Okay, so I'm just going to close it then, right? And say thank you for having me. Thank you very much for having me. I believe that God shows us how our life will work out in small moments, right? So kukho Dr. beginner's luck as well. God will say, you will say to God, hey, I want to be a teacher one day, right? And you'll find yourself, you're tutoring matric students in maths, right? And all of them will pass, and that was your first attempt. And then the next year you do it, and some of them drop out, and you're like, hi, this thing is not working, and some of them fail. But that first experience that you get is God saying, this is your life. This is how you're going to do it. Everything else that follows and seems like a challenge is just you working towards what God showed you you'll one day achieve, right? So because I'm in the eventing business, in the entertainment business, I always say, you have an event and it's a sold out event, and it's the first event you ever pulled together. God is saying, this is your job, this is your work. And now the second event, only 5 people show up. And like, I'm quitting this. You can't quit, not when you've been shown what the end looks like. So one of my lifelong dreams is to be a speaker. One of my lifelong dreams is to be a speaker, and I keep getting these moments where I'm invited to speak, and I'm standing at a podium, or I'm standing, with no podium like this. But every single time that it happens, my soul pauses for a moment as I speak, and my soul says, look at you. Look at you, right? So thank you so much for being part of that dream coming true. I really appreciate it. And yes, I hope we can have a continued relationship of even just smaller sessions where we just sit and we have, as I said to you, sorry, as I said to you, I like wine. So even if we're sitting, we have, 5 students and a glass of wine for myself. I don't know about the students, they'll speak for themselves. I want a glass of wine. And we just have those conversations. I'm not a support group kind of person, because I believe sometimes we can drag each other's energies down by doing support groups, but some people find necessity in them. I don't kick them, but I'm definitely up for just being able to motivate each other in the same spaces and then bouncing and going to live life, like how is it with your soul? So yeah, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I did say my name is Mahambehlala. I am PoeticSoul. I hope you also get to find who you really are outside of what they named you as. Wow. And yeah. I like that. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So it's behind me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was powerful, and I really have no words, but in the absence of my colleague, Mr. Nkashe, I would like to thank you all for coming. We know that this semester is short and it's busy, there's assignments, there's everything going on, but you chose to spend your 2 hours with us and Leletu. So we don't take that for granted. Thank you so much. So we're gonna ask you one last thing, which is the evaluation of the event. So please evaluate honestly. You want to do more of these events. Just answer the questions honestly and advise us